amazing.
I cannot believe this idea is finally happening. Hey, I'm Bob at ILikeToMakeStuff. Today, we're gonna make a chair that'll tell on you when you fart. I've got this list where I write down project ideas, and it's usually just a couple of words, and then I'll come back to it later and figure out how to do it. A couple of years ago, I wrote down fart sensor, and I never did anything with it, but I wrote that down because I found this sensor that will detect methane, and you can hook this up to an Arduino. So recently, we've been working on a new online course called Arduino for Makers, but it got me back thinking about this particular sensor and how we might make a simple project to use this to play a prank on somebody. As I came back to this idea, I started thinking more about this sensor because I was picturing methane being the thing that we would track, but actually this sensor will check for carbon monoxide, hydrogen, natural gas, propane, and a few other things, and there's a bunch of different sensors like this for different gases. So I started looking into how we could use this to actually detect if there was a fart or not. Now there is kind of a downside to using it this way. This sensor is not actually sensitive enough to pick up the amount of methane in a human fart. I did the research. But it does react to a fart, and I know that because I had my kids test it out a fair amount, and it definitely reacts. So to try this out, I took the sensor and an Arduino Uno, which is the same one that we use in the course, and then a little tiny screen. And it literally took me maybe 3 minutes to wire all this stuff up. It's very simple. And this is all of the code that it takes right here. There's nothing really complicated there. In fact, most of this is to use the screen just so I can see the number. The way this sensor works is that it's checking the concentration of all those gases at once, and then it just gives you a concentration number that you can decide what to do with. So being able to test this on command is a little bit of a strange thing, but it turns out that this sensor will also check for propane. So Anthony had the idea of using a propane torch here without lighting the flame. So this is what it will do when it senses what it's supposed to be sensing. Oh, there it is. So I've got this set to a numeric threshold, and when it crosses 500, then it can write different text. Now that's gonna allow us to do other stuff as long as we have that threshold that we can control, and then we can check. That's kind of enough of a prototype. It works as it is. It doesn't need a lot of code to do the thing that I want it to do. So now that we have this really basic setup, we can embed this in a chair and then start adding stuff to it, which is also what we do in the course. Here's the plan. So we got this chair. Megan found this at Goodwill. But the reason that we got this one is because it's made of rattan or wicker or something like that, which means it has a bunch of little tiny holes where gas can pass through the surface to the sensors below. And on the underside, we've got a big area down here where we can hide electronics and some lights and stuff like that. But the whole idea with this thing is basically you could set this up as a prank. Now everybody that I work with already knows about this, so we can't really prank each other. We're gonna have to come up with another way to prove that it works, but we're gonna go ahead and build it so that we could prank other people in the future. So we have to cut through this strapping because there's 2 layers of this like elastic stuff, and I think that's gonna end up creating a surface that we don't want because we want the gas to pass through. So I'm gonna make a little hole right there because we have to have a hole. There's no way to talk about this stuff and not be terrible in this video. All right, so now we need to actually put the sensor in that little spot that I made, put some propane from the other side to make sure that the gas will actually get through this surface. If not, we'll have to come up with something else. I don't know that I'm... Oh, hey, it totally works. All right, that's great. So this is a really simple setup, and we have proven that it works, but that little screen is not gonna be enough of a way to embarrass somebody if they happen to fart in the chair. So we gotta add something else to it before we embed all this stuff. And to do that, we're gonna use a relay. Now we talk about this stuff in the course, but the point of the relay is to take a low voltage input from the Arduino, like 5 volts, and then you can use it to control a higher voltage output. So you can plug in a lamp or a siren or both. This is a great little tool to connect what you're working on with something bigger and something that requires more power. So we're gonna hook it up to a simple lamp, just something that we can see next to the chair to make sure our whole system is working, and then we're gonna hide it underneath the chair. We need to give a disclaimer. It is 110 volts. There is a little bit of danger. Be smart, be careful. But now that we have this together, we need to hook it to our existing system. So we've got some jumpers that just need to jump over to the ports on the Arduino. And then since we're already able to cause this screen to show a value, all we have to do is add a couple of lines to turn on and off the relay when we hit the right threshold. I added 5 lines of code. And with those 5 lines, I was able to turn on the relay, wait 5 seconds, and then turn it off again. Very, very simple. And this is all stuff that we cover in the online course. So even though it looks like a lot, we go through it a piece at a time. We add things to the circuits and make it really easy to learn along the way. So now that we have the code on the board, we need to go try it out. That didn't work.
What happened?
I forgot 1 line of code. So 6 lines of code. Totally works. Made a small change to the code so that the light blinks, and we switched it out with a red bulb. And we have one more little thing we want to add in. This is a simple passive buzzer, so you don't have to add any extra power. You can just plug this into one of the ports on the Arduino, which means we could actually run it on the same port as the light bulb, and we don't even have to write any more code. I'm going to get this thing hooked up, and then we can put it in the chair and try it out. Try it out. Oh, gosh.
Yeah. That's amazing.
I cannot believe this idea is finally happening. I thought about this so long ago, and it's so stupid, but it's awesome. I had to figure out the math to figure out percentage earlier, and it was just really funny sitting there and going, okay, so how do I calculate the percentage of capacity for fart and take out the low number of the room? Actually thinking about like the range, realistic fart range.
Did you figure it out?
I did.
And you said you wouldn't use this math in real life.
That's right. Thanks, high school. This idea is super silly, obviously, and I'm really happy about it. But there is a practical application for something like this. If you were in a situation where you needed to build your own sensor to look for a gas leak or even a smoke detector, these little sensor units are made to do that. And I wanted to point that out and prove it by actually putting some smoke in front of this thing so that you can see that it would set off with smoke just like it will other gases. Whoa, it's coming out of the bottom.
What?
Oh, there it is. It actually took a little while for that sensor to go off, and that's because I set the threshold for what would make those lights blink in the code. You can change that threshold to whatever is relevant for your situation. But anyway, this is a legitimate sensor that you could use for legitimate things. We're just not doing that. If this were going to be an actual product, I would create a board, solder all these wires together so everything was permanently attached, but we're not going to do that because it's a fart chair. So we're just going to hot glue everything together, mount it underneath the chair so that we can actually play the prank on somebody. Earlier I mentioned that we were working on a new online course. It is called Arduino for Makers, and if a project like this seems a little overwhelming or just hard to understand for you, this course is made specifically for you. We made this so that you don't have to have any knowledge of coding, any knowledge of electronics or Arduinos themselves to be able to make a project. Basically, I just tried to make a course of study that would start you at the very beginning, help you come up with ideas, and then be able to do the hardware and the software and figure out how to put them together so that by the end of the course, you've got a real understanding of how to do this stuff yourself. And we use this stuff on lots of different projects. We got R2-D2, we have the ping pong scoring system, we have an entire wall that tells you the air quality in a room, and all that stuff is basically the same, and we're gonna talk about it in the course. If this is a skill that you wanna have in your tool belt, we wanna help you get there, and today we're launching the course. And we're also gonna give 25% off to everybody that signs up today only. So if you go to arduinoformakers.com and use this code, you're gonna get 25% off, or you can just hit the link down in the description, that will take you there as well. If you learn some stuff, we would love to hear about it. If you make some stuff with what you learned, we would love to see it, so be sure to tag us. This chair is finished, so now it's time to try it out. We don't really do pranks here, so we're not gonna prank anybody on camera. So instead, we're gonna turn this thing into a game. I took the display from the old practice seat project, which was actually a really cool Arduino project that you should check out. And I wired this up to the chair, and it's gonna show the concentration of the farts in the chair on this meter. So all we have to do is make one little change here, then we're gonna mount this on the wall outside of this room, and then we're all gonna go eat lunch.
I mean, Josh. Uh-oh.
Oh, Megan,
You got the five.
everybody.
Okay.
This was a ridiculous project, but it just goes to show you that some basic electronics can make a project really awesome and or really silly. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I really hope that you'll go check out our new course, Arduino for Makers. Use this code or hit the link down in the description to get 25% off the course just today. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Now it's time for bloopers. Thinking about methane, because that's what you think of is as in farts, To try this out, I actually just jumped over to boing. To embarrass somebody, we can plug in on, I have it backwards. Make a board to actually man, okay. I don't know where it's going with any of it.